Hello, welcome to this video on theme B7, the value of human life, as part of our theme B playlist. Our objectives today are to understand what's meant by both the sanctity of life and the quality of life. And our need to know today is this. Christians believe that all human life is sacred and should be cared for because it is given by God. Some people have a high quality of life and some have a low quality of life. And there is a debate as to whether a very low quality of life is truly a life at all. Let's dive in. If you've watched my previous video on the origins of the universe, you will know that Christians believe in the Genesis story about God's creation of Earth. And we read in that story that God leaves the best until last. That he brings together the light and dark. He talks about light and dark. We get sea and sky, land and sea, sun, moon, stars, fish and birds, and then we get animals, and finally humans last, the best until last. When we read Genesis chapter 1 verse 27, we read that humanity, that men and women were made in the image of God. They are image bearers of God. And that when we read on to Genesis 1:31, we see that when God looks at everything that he's made, it's very good. Each stage he's gone, he's looked, and it's good, it's good, it's good. When humans are on earth, it's very good. And this shows us something of the value of human life, that life is sacred, it is special. Human life is sacred and special. And here's where we get this idea about the sanctity of life. This idea that life is sacred, it's precious and valuable. This picture here shows you something that's precious and valuable. This wedding ring I'm holding right here, this is precious and valuable. And some things are precious to us, like this wedding ring, because of who gave us to them. And so human life is a gift from God, and therefore it's intrinsically valuable because it's a gift from him. And Christians believe that human life is sacred, and so it should be protected at all costs. And this is a key fact when we're thinking about ethical themes like war, abortion and euthanasia. Jews have an expression, there's a teaching in Judaism called pekuach nefesh, which means save a life. And the rule in Judaism is that if what your action is going to do breaks one of the mitzvot, one of the commandments of God, but it's going to save a life, then it's acceptable. So examples might be when they're fasting on Yom Kippur, it's okay to eat if they're going to die. If they're going to die of starvation, then it's okay for them to eat. If it's the Sabbath and they shouldn't be at work, but they volunteer for a lifeboat and they have to go out and save a life, that's okay to break the command because saving a life is of paramount importance. And what is life? And think about for a moment what constitutes a life. If someone's alive, what does that mean? And then let's look beyond that and think about what makes life worth living. So if you want to pause the video here and have a go at this, you can put life right in the middle of your piece of paper there, and maybe just write some things around it that you think make it life and that make life worth living. All right, I don't know if you did that or not. We're going to jump in. So possibly you said that you're alive, maybe if you're breathing. If you're able to eat and drink, these things are what you need to do to live. Also, perhaps you included sleeping, very important too. Other things that make life worth living are things like your talents, your abilities, your gifts, family, friends, hope, shelter, joy, a sense of purpose, romance, comfort. These things are great things that make life worth living. Aspirations for the future, property, holidays, expensive clothes, valuables, education, a sports car, and maybe even a private jet, who knows. And I guess the question is, at some point, what makes life worth living? You could measure this, right? If we put some circles in here, you could think about what makes a life. And as the circles go out, you can see that they start to incorporate some things that are a bit more, that less people are able to do. Now, when we think about the quality of life, we're thinking about a measurement. Expression of quality of life, it's like a measurement, all right? So if we put a ruler in there, you would see that a low quality of life would only be able to do certain things, and that someone with a high quality of life will be able to do lots of things. And that's simply what the quality of life means. There's an argument that if you think about that 1 centimeter mark on the ruler there, if you're only just able to eat, breathe and drink, or if you're not even able to do those with that assistance, are you truly alive? And this brings up some massive ethical questions. Right, have a pause here of the video and see if you can answer these questions. And then when you're ready, push play and we can talk about some of the answers. There's also an extension activity there if you'd like to try that. Okay, let's look at some of the answers. So what is the sanctity of life? In your own words, maybe you wrote something like, it's the belief that life is sacred because it's precious and given by God. What is meant by the quality of life? The quality of life is a measure for how much someone is able to do and enjoy in their life. What does Genesis 1:27 say? It says that humans, that men and women, are made in the image of God. What would a low quality of life look like? Perhaps it would look like someone who is just able to breathe and eat, but unable to move or unable to do lots of the things that people enjoy doing in life. How could it be argued that the sanctity of life is more important than the quality of life? And here we get into the nitty-gritty and why this is a big ethical question. So you could argue that because life is given by God, that it is always precious, no matter what the quality of life is. So if someone is suffering and has a low quality of life, that is still a life given to them by God. And because of that, that life should be protected at all costs. Do you think we should fight for the survival of all human lives, no matter what the cost? Explain your answer. Well, there's two ways you could have gone with this. You could say, yes, we should, because life is sacred and precious and valuable and given by God. And therefore, as stewards on God's earth, we should do all we can to preserve what God has given. Because we have loved ones who may be suffering, that doesn't mean that we should just let them go. We should do all we can to look after them, and as Jesus did, for example, heal them if we can. Or you could have argued the other way. You could have said, actually, at some point, the quality of life becomes so low that it's not right to continue to fight for that life, especially if there are large costs involved. It can be very expensive to keep someone going for a short period of time when actually the quality of life is so low, you could argue it wasn't worth it and your time and energy, etc., should have been invested elsewhere. There's another argument that someone might not enjoy being alive if their quality of life is very low, and therefore they should be allowed to die in peace. The extension there was thinking about abortion and euthanasia. Hopefully you had a go at that. Otherwise, we're going to look at those in our next videos. So to finish today, let's look back to our need to know. You now need to know that Christians believe that all human life is sacred and should be cared for because it's given by God, and that some people have a high quality of life and some people have a low quality of life, and that there is a debate as to whether or not a very low quality life is truly a life at all. See you next time.